They say wild animals never forget. But what happens when the boundary between gratitude and instinct begins to blur? It started on a quiet morning along the winding cliffs of the Kavango River, a place so remote and still, even the wind seemed cautious. Thomas, a 38-year-old wildlife volunteer and former Marine, was hiking solo, scouting the area for any trapped or injured animals after a recent landslide had shaken the fragile cliffside. He wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary. Maybe a few displaced birds or a scared warthog. But what he heard next stopped him cold. A roar. Deep, guttural, and desperate. It echoed through the canyon like a ghost calling out for help. Thomas froze. He knew that sound. It wasn't aggression, it was panic. He followed the noise, navigating through crumbling rocks and thick brush. And then he saw it. There, wedged between two massive boulders, just feet from the cliff's edge, was a young male lion. Its hind leg was bleeding, caught between the rocks. And worse, one wrong move would send both him and the lion over the edge. Thomas knew the rules. Never approach a wounded predator, especially not alone. But what he saw in that lion's eyes wasn't rage. It wasn't wild fury, it was terror. And something else, a quiet plea. Against every instinct, every survival rule, Thomas stepped forward. Slowly, deliberately. The lion growled low, but didn't move. It couldn't. Thomas circled around, carefully assessing the trap. The rocks had collapsed during the landslide and pinned the lion's leg in a way that made it impossible for the animal to pull free. And every shift in weight pushed both of them closer to the edge. Minutes passed like hours. Thomas pulled out his knife. One wrong sound, sharp move, and the lion could snap. But instead, it watched, breathing hard, bleeding, waiting. With a final wedge and push, Thomas pried the rocks apart just enough for the lion to pull its leg out. But that shift was enough to send the ground cracking beneath them. And then it all gave way. Man and beast plummeted together, bouncing off stone and air until they hit the river below. Darkness. When Thomas awoke, he was half submerged, coughing up water, ribs aching. The lion was nowhere in sight. Then, movement. Not from the trees, from the water. The lion was swimming, not away, but toward him. For a second, Thomas panicked. Was this it? Had the animal's instinct kicked in? Would it finish him off now that it was free? But the lion reached him and nudged him upward. Not with claws, not with teeth, with its head. It pushed Thomas toward the shallows, keeping him above the surface. Every time he drifted, the lion pulled him back. Thomas had no strength to resist. He surrendered. Half-conscious, bruised, and broken. They reached the shore. The man lay there, gasping, too weak to move. And then, the lion did something no one could have predicted. It sat beside him, not aggressively, not like a predator claiming territory, like a sentinel, like a guard. Hours passed. When Thomas regained full consciousness, the sun had shifted and the lion was gone. No tracks, no sound. Only the memory of it standing silently as he lay half alive on the riverbank. But the story doesn't end there. 2 weeks later, after recovering from fractured ribs and a dislocated shoulder, Thomas returned to the same region, partly for closure, partly to convince himself it wasn't all a fever dream. Locals had begun talking. Whispers of a lion spotted near the village edge, not hunting, not prowling, just watching, always watching, from a distance, never attacking, almost protective. And then came the night that changed everything. A child had gone missing. Swept away in a sudden flash flood during a storm that caught the village off guard. Search parties formed. Hours turned to desperation. Until one of the trackers noticed something unusual. Large paw prints. Heading upstream. Not away from the current, but toward it. Toward the child. When they followed, what they found froze them all. The boy, alive, shivering, soaked, curled up under a fallen tree. And just meters away, the lion, watching from the shadows. It didn't growl, it didn't move. It simply turned and vanished into the forest. The villagers stood there, speechless. No one could understand it, but Thomas did. He never spoke of the details, not fully. But he told the elders quietly about the day he pulled a lion from the cliff and nearly died doing it. How the lion didn't leave him. How it saved him in return. And now, maybe, just maybe, it was still saving others. The story spread. Some believed it was nonsense. Romanticized fantasy, a man wanting to believe an animal could feel gratitude. But others knew better. Because a few nights later, security camera footage from a nearby ranger outpost captured something strange. A lion, walking slowly through the open gates. It approached the edge of the camp, and it dropped something. A dead snake, a venomous puff adder, right where the children had played earlier that day. Then it turned and walked away into the dark. People began calling him the Sentinel. No one could explain his behavior. He wasn't tame, no zoo escapee, just a lion. Wild, free, yet somehow watching over those who could not protect themselves. But here's the real shock. Months later, DNA tests on the lion's fur, collected from a scratch left on a tree near the boys' rescue site, revealed something unexpected. This lion had once been part of a poaching ring, raised in captivity, beaten, trained to fight, used in illegal wildlife trade, until it had escaped, barely surviving in the wild. And that meant something very important. This wasn't just a lion that had learned kindness from nature. This was a lion that had known cruelty and still chose compassion. Maybe it remembered the man who freed it when it was moments from death. Or maybe it decided that not all humans are the enemy. We don't know. But we do know this. In a world where wild beasts often act more human than humans do, maybe the question isn't whether animals have souls. Maybe it's whether we still do. Because sometimes, the wild doesn't just need saving. Sometimes, it's the one saving us. Like and subscribe our channel for more interesting stories. See you in another episode.